environments are actually kind of daunting. You know, we tend to think of you know, things as being like, you know, like speaking to people or selling our ideas or writing or feeling as though we are like capable to be able to do things. It's actually kind of difficult. And 70% of us experience imposter syndrome at some point in our lives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to gallery view, and I can see all of you. So for those of you that are on camera, hi. For those of you that aren't, that's okay. But just, I'm going to ask some questions just to kind of gauge how impostery we feel on this meeting, and worth acknowledging that this is something we all experience at some time and some point of our lives, women more so than men. So who here, and just nod if it's the case for you, who here believes in some way that any success you've had is a result of luck? Like it's just good luck. I've just got lucky. Okay, cool. Who here has a belief that, you know, one day you're going to get found out that you're actually a bit shit? Yeah, someone's going to be like, aha, I see you. Who here believes, and on some level, you know, this isn't all the time and always, but who here believes on some level that other people are just a bit better than us? Yes, so this is welcome to being human. Welcome home, congratulations, you're all human. So this stuff is so normal, so natural, and I've worked with, you know, thousands of people on my confidence now, and I've never met anyone, and this isn't career specific, experience specific, gender specific, I've never met a single person that in some way, on some level, sometimes doesn't feel these things. It's just part of the human condition that for some reason we're all kind of like walking around like a bit of a murky belief that we're just not good enough. And I'm going to actually talk a little bit, because there's not that many of us, I'm just going to make this a bit conversational. I think that'll be nicer. I'm going to talk maybe a little bit about why that is. So has anyone heard of the negativity bias? Yeah, okay. So Emma has. For those of you that haven't, basically as humans, we are genetically predisposed to focus on the negative. So we are built to always be going, okay, am I going to get laughed at? So as humans, we have two fears. One is pain, the other is ridicule. We evolved in packs, we evolved in groups, we evolved to feel safe in a community. So if you say to somebody, excuse me, can you speak to that person, share that piece of work, whatever it is, neurologically speaking, that is akin to threatening our survival. Like it sounds really extreme and really big, but it just isn't. You know, this is how we're built. And we tend to walk around the world, and I like rational brains will go, no, I can do it, I'm okay. And then we have another little voice that goes, but are you awful? Like, and those kind of two things. And we have that dissonance. And some people maybe, you know, have a real belief in our skills and go, actually, I'm good at this. Like I've been doing this for a while. I kind of know what I'm doing. But at the same time, we walk around with some fears, some worries, some doubts. And this is a classic combination of like confidence is your belief in your skills. Self-esteem is your belief in yourself. And that's why we can often have this, and I don't know if this resonates with any of you, but this like internal battle that, you know, maybe before we do something, we have to really go through a process of convincing ourselves that it's okay. Or before we do something, we maybe like lie awake at night freaking out about it. All really normal stuff. Really normal stuff. This is just kind of how we operate. On average, a human brain scans for threat 9,000 times a minute. So we're always being like, threat, threat, threat. Hello, welcome, welcome. We're always being like, threat, threat, threat. Is there threat? Is there danger? And that's just how we're built. Because if we weren't, we'd be like walking into bushes or not being able to eat or survive or stay and build stable communities. So this is kind of part of it, but it doesn't necessarily help. And actually the reason this is because if you think about when we first evolved, like our brain, our limbic system that is responsible for our fear is exactly the same kit as when we first became bipedal. Like it's ancient. Our brains are ancient. And when we think about when that first happened, we would be walking, through the plains of the savannas, and we would see a tiger. Like, it is in our interests not to just focus on that tiger in that moment, but every single time there might be another tiger to go, is there a tiger? Is there a tiger? Only now it isn't a tiger, it's a troll on LinkedIn, or a mean boss, or a job interview. But the brain is the same. And actually a lot of this like imposter syndrome, confidence stuff, a lot of it's physiological. It's in our bodies. We have like our rational brains going like, we can do it, but then we have our primitive brains and our bodies going, no, we can't, my hands are shaking, I'm not going to do it. Just a little Zoom raise of hands. Who here has ever said no to something that you actually want to do because of fear? I sure have. Chloe, yes. Emma, yeah. Holly, yeah. When I first launched my new business, I spoke to 800 people and I asked them that question. 800 people, men, women, different careers, different levels of experience. And I said, have you ever said no to something that you actually kind of want to do, but you're just a bit too scared, nervous, feel overwhelmed? 94% of us said yes. 94%. And so I started researching the tools, the techniques, the strategies to help us overcome that. And the thing with overcoming imposter syndrome, the thing with overcoming that, feeling as though we can just really live in our like full power, like really just go for it and shine. Pop in the chat, right? I'm going to ask a really abstract question. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, this is all abstract feeling stuff. So as a percentage, how much are you currently shining at your full potential at the moment as a percentage? Pop it in the chat for me. $65, 80%, 70%, 70%, 40%. Thank you. Amazing. It varies. 60, 70%. That's pretty high. People typically come out at 20%. People are typically like 20%. So it's a strong, brightly shining group here. But now I just want to ask you the question. Just think for a moment. And this is abstract. But what would be different? And maybe pop it in the chat too. What would be different in your life, in your career, if you were operating, shining at 100%? What would be different? Often to that question, people say things like, I wouldn't be living in fear. I wouldn't care what people thought about me or making mistakes. I would earn more. I would have a book out, at least one, but I'd be doing more webinars and talks. Helen, what's holding you back? We're all waiting for that book. I would be more creative. Yeah, this stuff is real. It's real. It's how we're built. It's physiological, and it has a very, I would ask for higher rates. I have a really, really brilliant tip about how to ask for higher rates. And basically what you do is you have to just ask. I get asked it so much, like, how can I charge more? You just have to up your prices, and it's awkward and uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. Believe me, I have been there, but you just like incrementally just edge them up. But this stuff is real, and we're not going to overcome this overnight. We can't like shift and change and grow, because what we're dealing with here is fear. We're dealing with self-doubt. We're dealing with worthiness. We're dealing with feeling good enough. And often this stuff is really hidden and a bit murky. I've whacked mine up. I like the word whacked. I've whacked mine up twice lately, and both have said yes. Yeah. I just had to blurt it out. Exactly. Or like, just had to, doubt is uncomfortable, push through. Exactly. And often people will be like, okay. And if we're attracting the right clients and working with.
I don't know if it's for anyone else, but your audio has gone.
I think you're on mute, or you've gone.
Kirsty, your audio is gone. Can you hear us?
Am I back?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I just got a little thing saying your high CPU, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Classic Zoom. Okay, so what was I saying? Where did I get up to? That's it. So, you know, often what we're dealing with here is a kind of belief that on some level we're not good enough. And for women, that's even more so. There is something called, I'm going a bit on a tangent here, but that's okay. There's something called epigenetics. I don't know if you've heard of it, but basically it's a field of research that has proven, that has shown that trauma sits within a nervous system for up to 16 generations. So, yeah, trauma sits within it becomes encoded in a mother's nervous system and then gets passed along generation to generation as a protection mechanism. And we're women, right? So we're not just dealing with a woman's oppression now. We have encoded within us 16 generations of being oppressed as women. Shit's real. That's real. And so something as simple as upping our prices, we've got encoded trauma that we should be silenced and quieted and small and meek and all of those things. So of course, and I don't think confidence is gender specific. I think it's societal constructs. But of course, for women, it's going to be that little bit harder for us to really be able to go, yeah, I'm here. Does this resonate? Does this make sense? Okay, so I'm going to share some techniques now. I'm going to share my slides on my screens, but it's just really worth saying that, you know, this stuff really doesn't happen overnight, but I'm going to leave you with some stuff that you can do to try and develop some slightly different patterns and train of thoughts. So the first thing to do is we need to normalize the feeling. So when these worries, fears, doubts, overwhelm comes up, what we tend to do as humans is we tend to go, I'm nervous about this. I'll use nerves as an example. I'll go, you know, we'll go, I'm nervous about this. And then a little voice may go, well, why are you nervous? That's stupid. Other people wouldn't be nervous. See all those people over there, they're not nervous. You're the only one that's nervous. And that's quite problematic because you can't fix self-doubt with self-doubt. We tend to think we can will or force or insult ourselves to confidence. We tend to think if we tell ourselves we're lazy enough, then we'll get more done. We tend to think if we tell ourselves we're stupid enough, then we'll get smarter. We tend to think if we, you know, tell ourselves that we're weak enough, then we'll somehow get more confident. But even as I say these things aloud, we kind of know this is typically, and not always, there's lots of like human difference in this, but this is typically how we navigate this stuff, this like dance between nerves, judgment. We tend to kind of flip between those two things. And it kind of makes sense. Like, as I say this, it's like, obviously it doesn't work, right? And research has shown this. But we learn it, you know, when we're kids and we make a mistake, for example, we get told off. And so that becomes modeled to us. So anytime we do something small, we don't completely match our really intense expectations of ourselves. We tell ourselves off, but it doesn't work when we're trying to build confidence, when we're trying to overcome imposter syndrome, when we're trying to nurture ourselves. So I'm going to share with you now just, you know, a really powerful but simple train of thought to practice. And often we talk about, you know, building habits, right? And we think about habits as actions, as things we do. So a habit of going to the gym, a habit of getting up at this time, but habits are also thought processes. And often we have a habit of this stuff. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just for a second so I can see you. Just nod. Whoever has said about themselves, like, I'm not a confident person. Little raise of hands, yeah. Now, really normal, so normal. But neurologically speaking, when we do that, it becomes real. It becomes true. Because the way our beliefs work in our brain is it's a habit that we formed, a thought process habit that we formed. So next time, so we say that, and the more we say it, the more our brain goes down that neural pathway. So the more we find ourselves in a situation where confidence, whatever that means, is required, our brain will go to that path. We tell ourselves we're not a confident person and we take actions in accordance with that belief. So our beliefs really, and I've seen it, our beliefs really do truly shape who we are, how we act, how we're perceived. So all we want to be doing is, we're never going to eradicate fear. It's not going to happen. But actually we can welcome it. We can know it's normal. We can know it's okay. We cannot tell ourselves that we're wimps or weak or whatever for having these fears, for feeling these things. So all I'm going to do today is just give you a few more options of things that you can think, and you practice it. And the way we practice it, it depends how you like to do this stuff, but either journaling, verbalizing. The way I practice it is those fears would come up and I would verbalize another thought, and eventually I was just training my brain to go to another thought over months. This takes a long time, but it can be done. It absolutely can be done. I promise you, as someone who's worked with thousands of women on this, but has really come out the other side. Like, we tend to also think like some people are naturally confident. That doesn't exist. Confidence isn't genetic. It's a skill. It's a skill that we learn. And some people have just more quickly and easily learned that skill. But any of us can learn the skill. It is just a skill that we learn, develop, and apply. Okay. So a really powerful, simple new train of thought to practice. Okay, so it tends to be, imposter syndrome tends to be something like, oh no, I'm going to get found out that I'm not very good. Other people are going to realize that I'm winging it. Other people are going to learn that I'm just like making this up as I go along, whatever it is, whatever that fear, that little voice, that inner critic looks like for you. Become aware of it. Start catching it and becoming aware. This is often a really hard point for people because so many of us have become so disconnected from our emotions because busy, distraction. It can sometimes actually be difficult to listen to ourselves. And so often these things might come out in our actions or in our bodies, maybe a tightness in our chest, a churning in the pit of our stomach, and avoidance. You know, like, oh, I'm not going to write the book. I'm not going to do the webinars. I'm not going to get that promotion. And so it tends to come out in our actions, but we need to just start understanding the original thought that's creating that behavior. So what is it? What is the thoughts that you're thinking? Because all a belief is a thought that you keep thinking. So what are those thoughts? I'm not good enough. I'm not there yet. I'm not experienced enough. I'll do it when this has happened. What are those thoughts? Come to know them, watch them, observe them, become aware of them. And then you want to say something like this, like, okay, there is some imposter syndrome. Like, we all get it from time to time. It's normal. I feel this way. So next time you feel those fears, those doubts, that avoidance, that reluctance to do something, it's just a case of being like, okay, no big deal. People will come to me. So I'm a public speaker. Professional public speaker is like another line of work. And so people will come to me and they will say, Kirsty, I'm so scared of public speaking. I'm so scared of public speaking. I'm so nervous about it. And my response is always just like, yeah. That's it. There's no more to it than that. Of course you're scared. It's scary. It's scary as shit. It's really scary. And like, we tend to feel we live in a society, and it comes from toxic masculinity that was serving none of its victims. But we live in a society where we think a marker of confidence is to have no nerves. That's not it. Nobody doesn't feel like, even like, if you've ever seen the Lady Gaga documentary on Netflix, before she does the Super Bowl, she is freaking out. Like, it's normal. Even people at the absolute, people who do this as a profession, we all feel nervous because all nerves are, it's just a marker that you care about what you're doing. It's just an indication that you give a shit. So please never let nerves stop you from doing anything, because we've incorrectly, and this is an incorrect belief, society and culture has incorrectly taught us that good people, worthy people, successful people, capable people don't get nervous. It's bullshit. And so all that means is we feel as though we are not worthy, successful, capable, accomplished, good enough until we've eradicated our nerves. So actually, a lot of this, it's not about an eradication of fear, it's a welcoming of fear. So I think language is important. And so I will always say, I will never say like I am, and actually you guys know language is important. Like, I will never say I am nervous, because I'm not. there are nerves. Nerves are a passing physiological phenomena that are temporarily existing in my body. I'm not nervous. Like, I'm not like, when I say I'm nervous, it somehow becomes woven into my identity. It somehow gets some kind of meaning. There are some nerves. There are some nerves. There is some fear. It is there. It's there. I see it. I observe it. And actually, it stops becoming about us and so intense and in the moment, and just becomes something we passively observe, which is really all it should be. Because again, when we think about how we're built, when we think about how we're evolved, it is the most normal, natural, rational, everyday human occurrence to feel nervous about doing stuff. It would be weird if we weren't. So when I'm kind of like going into a thing and I'm nervous about it, the train of thought in my head used to be many years ago, like, I'm nervous. Oh no, okay, I'm nervous. This means something. It means that I'm not as, like, they're not nervous and I'm really nervous. And people are going to see I'm nervous. They're going to see I'm nervous, and then they'll see that I'm nervous. And if they see I'm nervous, they'll go, what an idiot. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And the men aren't nervous, but I am nervous. That would be my train of thought before. Maybe that resonates with some of you as a typical nerve soup. But my train of thought now is simply, oh, there's some nerves. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Nerves are my friend. Maybe do I have a slide on this in this presentation? No, it doesn't matter. Research has shown when we have a bit of nerves, this is called the Yerkes-Dodson law, if you're interested in this stuff. Research has shown when we have some nerves, when we have a bit of nerves, that's when we perform at our best. It allows us to think more quickly. We think on our feet. Physiologically, nerves and excitement are the exact same physiological response. The only thing that changes is our neurological perception. And research has shown that those of us who positively reappraise our nerves as excitement perform better. So this is all easier said than done, right? It's all quite abstract. But so the easiest thing to do on this that isn't that abstract is to go, yeah, nerves are normal. I'm nervous about this. I have imposter syndrome. This is scary. Yeah, it is. It is. Anybody would be. Anybody would be. Anyone would be. Your nerves. And so when people come to me and they're like, I'm so nervous about public speaking, I'm like, yeah, your nerves are not interesting. There's nothing interesting about your nerves. It just is what it is. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it enough? Okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's not even think about the nerves. And sometimes those nerves can go the other way and they can become debilitating. And we also have to do this with like buckets of self-compassion and loving ourselves and knowing we go through stuff, we feel things are difficult, things are daunting. At no point is this diminutizing or ignoring the very real, anxious, difficult states we can find ourselves in. Like, this shit is real, but it's not irrational and it's not unique. And I think that's the distinction. You know, we often tend to think that it's irrational and unique. It's irrational for me to feel this way and only I feel this way. Does that resonate? But it isn't. I promise you. Thousands of people all feeling the same stuff and letting it get in the way of us because somehow society has told us that in order to be able to do the thing, we have to not feel scared about it. It's ridiculous. It's bonkers. When you think about it, it's absolutely bonkers. Okay, cool. So what else will I share with you today? Okay, so, and I think that's, yeah, so, okay, this is good. So so it's really about just like, you know, recognizing that these feelings are really super normal, but not that helpful. So it is normal. We have to go, this is really normal for me to feel this. Absolutely normal. No judgment, no shame. The biggest piece of advice I tend to give to people, because it was one of the most impactful pieces of advice I got given, was allow inconsistency. Allow yourself some inconsistency. We are not delivering performant, capable, confident machines every single day. We fluctuate. We fluctuate in terms of our energy levels, our moods, our hormone profiles that dictate and impact our stress and our confidence. We're animals and we shift and we change. And often the expectation
Kirsty, your audio has gone again, by the way.
And on those days where I'm scared or anxious or whatever the flavor is, that's okay. That's okay. I would often freak out about my negative emotions. I'd be like, there's a negative emotion. I can't have a negative emotion. That's bad. And in doing that, I'm just creating more and more and more of it. So with lots of self-compassion, we have to recognize these feelings as normal, but they don't help us. Our brain is really, really, really uniquely equipped at calculating risk. Very good at calculating risk, much less effective at calculating opportunity. So, Helen, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to use you as an example. Sounds still on. Yes, I'm going to use you as an example. So you and I would have written the book. So our brains will calculate the risk on that. It's time. What if it's not that good? I don't even know where to start. Who would I speak to about this? My time's really important. And so if I spend time writing this book, like, whatever it is. So our brain is always calculating risk. It's what our brains do. And we can formulate risk based on past experience. But what we're not so good at is going, okay, what's the opportunity here? We have to really force ourselves to do that. So, the opportunity of writing a book is clients come to me easily, readily. I don't have to worry about my pricing. I get to share my message. I get to empower people with others. Our lessons are not ours to keep. Our lessons are ours to teach. I get to do that. But our brain won't naturally do that. It's not our default state. So we have to actively, consciously focus and reframe and think about what opportunities are. So I'm just going to share my screen again. I'm going to share another little thought process. Okay, so recognizing the feeling is so normal, no judgment, we're not failing, we're not weak, we're not lazy, all of those things we like to tell ourselves. Totally normal, but it isn't helping us, it's not serving us, it's not getting us to where we want to go. So research shows those who negatively compare themselves to others do not perform as well as those who focus on their own performance. So that trait, some of us, not all of us, can have, and again, anything that I say here, it's not a statement of judgment, it's a statement of confirmation. That trait we can sometimes have is going like, well, they're better than me. I'm not as good as them. They do things better than me. I can't do that. We tend to do that because we think it will motivate us and inspire us, but it doesn't. It does two things. It's very demotivating and it stops us focusing on what's important, our lane and what we want. So here's another powerful but simple train of thought to practice. And again, with lots of compassion and acknowledgement that this is just practice. So if you like journaling, these are nice journal prompts, or just when you're walking down the street and you're having that little conversation in your head, just listening to what that voice is saying. Okay, so this is something that you want to do, a situation that isn't going your way. Maybe that's charging more. Maybe that's doing more webinars. Maybe that's promoting yourself more. Maybe that's going for that promotion. What is your current thinking on that? So ask yourself the question, what's my current thinking? What am I telling myself about this? What feelings do these bring about in me? So the current thinking might be that I'm not experienced enough yet. And there's people have written similar stuff and do similar stuff to me, and I'm not unique. I don't have anything new to say. I don't have any value to add. So this tends to be our thinking. And then the next step is going like, okay, cool. So what are the feelings that this brings about in me? What are those feelings? Okay, well, kind of makes me feel a bit not good enough. Actually, it makes me think about what other people are doing and negatively judge myself and probably harshly judge myself. That makes me feel a bit anxious, makes me feel a bit small. And then the next question is, do these feelings make me more resourceful? The answer is nearly almost no. And the big one, what reality will I create if I continue to give life to these feelings? And maybe just sit with that and think about that for a moment. The thoughts that we often think, very normal, no judgment. but eventually they become our life, because they become our beliefs, and our beliefs become our actions, and our actions become our results. So we have to think about what reality we want to create and what thoughts we need to think in order to create that reality. So maybe that's another question. It's not on the slide, but what reality do I want to create? What reality do I want to create? What actions do I need to take in order to create that reality? And what thoughts will help me bring about those actions? Does that resonate? Because often so many people will come to me and they'll be like, oh, I'm nervous about this thing, and we'll focus on the outcome. But research has shown that our thoughts, it's called the TFAR framework if you're interested in this stuff, but our thoughts impact our feelings impact our actions, and our actions impact our results. And we tend to focus only on the results. So the result might be, I don't know, like an example for me is a result of someone who might want to speak at a conference but doesn't feel good enough, for example. So that's a common thing. And so people will go, okay, so can you get me pitching for events and get me speaking on stages? And my answer is always like, yes, absolutely, but we're not going to start there, because we'll never solve it, because we'll keep thinking the thoughts, and we'll keep finding ourselves, same situations, same mistakes, doing the same things over and over and over again, because we need to shift the original thinking. We need to shift the original thoughts. So let's just play with this for a moment. Let's just sit here, because I think this is can be a bit abstract, but it's really, really powerful. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop my video and mute, and I'm just going to leave you with the screen shared just for like 5 minutes, and just go through this process and start looking and thinking about what some of these thoughts are, and go through that process. Does that make sense? Cool. So we'll just do that just for a few minutes. So just notepad and pen, or just think about it, sit with it, because we can train ourselves to do this. And it's just a practice. And actually, with a bigger group, I would never normally do this. But now we're here now. So let's just practice it. Me telling you, people don't change based on what we know. We change based on what we feel. So let's give it a go. So I'm going to mute. I'm going to stop my video. Then I'm going to share my screen so you have it. And then in like 7, 8 minutes or something, I'll jump back on and we'll wrap up. But I think this will be the most powerful thing I can leave you with as a little gift. Okay, I shall do that now.
I think that's the wrong slide. The one with the question. Kirsty, if you can hear me, I think there might have been another slide where you had the questions there. If you are there. There's that one.
Could you not see it?
There we could just see the title without the 3 questions.
Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Just one more minute with this. Can you see how practicing that, either just to reframe ongoing thoughts or in the moment as you need it, how that could help like start shifting some perceptions and some thinking? Does that resonate? Cool. So I will leave that with you. The last thing I want to do is I'm going to just walk us through some techniques for in those moments when fear, imposter syndrome, let me stop sharing, when fear, imposter syndrome may well be stopping us from like doing the stuff we want to do. So thank you so much. Okay, so as I've mentioned, like nerves are normal. There is nothing wrong with them, really normal. Sometimes they can become debilitating, either in the sense that, you know, we can't articulate our pricing, or our hands start shaking, or we just avoid things. We just become really avoidant of stuff we actually want to do. So I'm going to share 5 techniques with you now that you can go through in the moment that can really, really help. So write them down as I go. So the first one is called labeling. All these techniques come from 2 things. So from a neuroscientist called Lieberman and a CBT practitioner called Oshner. So step number 1, it's labeling. And that is articulate the feeling in 1 or 2 words. And we want to be getting as specific as possible with that and using our language as much as we can. This does 2 things. It forms as a distraction, but stress and language are different places in the brain. So when we start trying to think about words and language, it dampens our stress receptor in our brain. The next is a technique called normalizing. Big fan of this. As you can tell, I've been talking about this a lot in the webinar, and that's just saying to yourself, this is not a unique or an irrational response. This is normal. I feel like this. The third is called distancing. This is a personal favorite of mine. That is asking yourself the question, how will I feel about this next month? And that is almost kind of taking a broader cognitive perspective, like a helicopter view of the situation. So how will I feel about this next month? How will I feel about this next year? Can help us really in the moment to just keep going forward, like doubts are normal, push through them. And then the next one is repositioning. Maybe there's someone who inspires you, a mentor, someone you want to be more like. Now, this isn't comparing ourselves to others, but this is just asking ourselves a question like, what would that person do? How would that person act? How would they feel? I also do this with myself. So there is a version of me who is very confident. She's powerful, she's confident, she's a force, she's commanding. It's a version of me. I'm not like that all the time. It's almost like I know what I need, and I kind of like step into her. Maybe this resonates with some of you. Like I just step into her when I need to. And so it's not me all the time. It's just in that moment I reposition. Another nice question you can ask yourself for repositioning is, how would I deal with this situation if I was the most successful person in the world? I like that one, because suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I don't think I would care. I'd actually be fine. And it's just nice. It just gives us, because we're always so in it, right? We're always so in our fears and our doubts and our uncertainties. Sometimes we just need to have some techniques and some tools. And then the last one is called reframing. And so that is trying to think about completely different, opposite perspectives of a situation. So a nice question to ask yourself for reframing is, what would a friend say to me about this situation? Well, they'd probably say, you're experienced, you're capable. Do you remember that time you did that really good thing and it was fine and you're okay and you've got it? So we'll kind of move into like a little bit of a wrap up, and then maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions if anyone has any. But I think the main thing that I really wanted to articulate today was our imposter syndrome, our fears, our doubts. They're so normal, so normal. So many of us think it's just us that feel them, and actually just nod if that, you know, just like we just feel this, other people don't feel this, it's just me, I'm flawed in some kind of way. They're so normal. And also to acknowledge that, you know, we're not a slave to this. We can change these thoughts, but the way we change these thoughts is just by practicing other options. And so those little thought processes that I've shared with you today, just keep practicing them, either in the moment when you feel those doubts coming up, or if you're a journaler, daily, like pop it as little journal prompts as and when you need it, when you're not feeling so great, because we can shift and change our cognitive perceptions. Research has really shown us that. And finally, that confidence is a skill. It's just a skill we learn. And so all this is just learning that skill with lots of self-compassion and acknowledgement that things are difficult and things are hard and it's okay. And just giving yourself that time to prioritize this. We also tend to think that self-belief is a luxury. It isn't. We deprioritize ourselves all the time. This work that I've just shared with you may go in a notebook and you'll never look at it again because it's not a priority. Why is that? Why is your own success, happiness, boldness, confidence not a priority? Because society's told us that we shouldn't be, that we have to do things for others all the time, that we need to be productive, and productivity is writing words and delivering work. Productivity is also enabling ourselves to really fulfill our own potential, you know? And that's always just nice to kind of remember, with acknowledging that I'm right there with you. I am a confidence coach. I have to do this. Like, I have to practice what I preach. And even for me, I'm like, no, it's not important. It is. It really is. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you took some stuff away there that has made you think a little differently, or given you some food for thought that you can go away and practice, and just practice. So at this point, I just invite, if anyone has any thoughts or has any questions, just feel free to kind of come off mute or pop them in the chat. If there's anything you'd like to ask about anything specific in your lives or your work that might be coming up for you that I might be able to help with. And if not, I'll just kind of thank you again, and I'll just invite you to slowly leave and stop doing the awkward end of Zoom thing that we have to do. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. That was brilliant.
You're very welcome.
That was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited to read your book, Helen. All right. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.